The morning at Silverpine Lake was painted in gold. The sky shimmered, the birds danced across the rippling water, and my little grandson Ayaan ran across the wooden pier with his red toy boat clutched in tiny fingers. His laughter was my heartbeat, soft, bright, and full of life. This trip was supposed to be peaceful. My daughter-in-law Maywish had arranged it, saying it would be good for Ayaan to spend time with her side of the family. Since my son's death, I had clung to my grandson as the last piece of my world. Maywish's new family, the Raheems, were wealthy, refined, and cruel behind their polished smiles. They never liked me. To them, I was the unwanted shadow of their daughter's past, the poor, aging mother-in-law who reminded them of a chapter they wanted erased. But I stayed quiet because Ayaan's happiness meant more than my pride. That morning, Maywish's mother, Rabia, approached me with a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Hina Begum, you should rest. We'll take Ayaan to the lake. He loves water, doesn't he?" I hesitated. Ayaan couldn't swim yet. He's too small to go near deep water, I warned. Rabia's lips curved tighter. "Oh, don't worry. My sons will watch him." Maywish chimed in, her tone calm, almost dismissive. "Mama, please, you worry too much." I should have gone. My heart told me something wasn't right, but they insisted, and I didn't want to seem overprotective. So I stayed behind, watching them leave, my boys' laughter echoing in the distance. Half an hour later, that laughter turned into screams. I rushed outside, my heart pounding, breath frozen. On the edge of the lake, chaos unfolded. The Raheem boys shouted and pretended to dive in, but no one moved fast enough. My world shattered as I saw Ayaan's small body, floating face, down in the water. I screamed his name until my voice broke. They pulled him out, lifeless, cold and still. My hands trembled as I tried to revive him, whispering prayers through sobs. Rabia cried loudly, too loudly. Maywish's face was pale, her hands trembling, not with grief, but guilt. I saw it, I felt it. They told the police it was an accident. They said he slipped while playing. But in their eyes, I saw the truth, cold, mocking, merciless. At the hospital, as I held Ayaan's lifeless hand, something inside me died too. The world blurred. My heart went silent, until I heard a deep, familiar voice behind me. "Who did this, Hina?" I turned. It was my brother, Arif, the one man who had always protected me when the world turned cruel. I couldn't speak, just wept into his chest. He held me, his eyes sharp as steel. "Don't cry, sister. They think they've broken you, but they don't know me." That night, as grief burned into rage, a storm began to rise, one that would drown every lie the Raheems ever told. The house was silent that night, silent except for my broken sobs. Every corner still whispered Ayaan's laughter. Every shadow carried his smile. I sat clutching his small sweater, rocking back and forth, whispering his name until dawn broke through the curtains. Arif didn't speak much. He watched, waited, and when the tears dried on my face, he said in his calm, commanding voice, "Tell me everything, Hina." So I did. I told him about Maywish's coldness, the Raheem's taunts, how they treated me like dust after my son's death. I told him about that day by the lake, how they insisted on taking Ayaan, how their smiles felt wrong, how no one truly tried to save him. Arif's jaw tightened. He stood up, pacing slowly. "You know what they did wasn't an accident. You saw it in their eyes." I nodded weakly. "But what can we do? They're rich, powerful. They have friends in the police. Who will believe an old woman like me?" He looked at me, sharp, unwavering. "I will." Arif had always been the quiet one in the family, the man who never showed his strength until it mattered. I knew he was successful, but I had no idea how much. Over the next few days, I found out. He wasn't just rich, he was feared. A silent force in the business world, the kind of man whose name made people straighten their backs. He made a few calls, and suddenly people started talking. His investigators uncovered everything: the Raheem's fake charity funds, their hidden properties, They're shell companies used for money laundering. Everything they own, Arif said one night, laying files on the table, is built on lies. I stared at the papers, proof of their corruption, their greed, their rot. My hands trembled as I touched them. You mean we can destroy them? Arif's eyes burned with quiet fury. Not destroy, sister. Expose. We won't use bullets or blood. We'll use truth. Let them choke on their own filth. The plan began quietly. I visited the Raheems often, dressed in white, pretending to be the grieving, forgiving grandmother. I smiled at Rabia, brought her food, even thanked her for trying to save Ayaan. Each visit made her more confident, more careless. She believed she'd crushed me. But every time I left that house, Arif received another piece of information, another lie, another deal, another thread to pull. At night he would update me. Their construction company has unpaid taxes. Their son forged documents for land acquisition. Their accounts are under investigation. For the first time in months, I slept without crying. Arif looked at me one evening and said softly, "Tomorrow we start." I whispered, "What will happen to them?" His lips curved into a cold smile. "They pushed your grandson into the lake, Hina. Now it's their turn to drown." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky as if the heavens themselves were ready to witness the beginning of justice. The first sign that the world was turning was a single headline that blinked on. My phone at dawn, Raheem Group under investigation. The letters swam in front of my eyes and then steadied like the first firm step after a long fall. I pressed my thumb to the screen as if I could hold the news close and make it more real. Arif moved like a man who had been waiting his whole life for a long, planned moment. He released the files to the right places, an anonymous tip to the tax authority, a quiet meeting with an investigative reporter, copies to a diligent lawyer who didn't blink when shown proof. Within days, auditors arrived, bank accounts were frozen, properties were flagged, the Raheem's glossy facade cracked, hairline by hairline. They begged, of course. Rabia sent me flowers, the grand, theatrical type, and letters that dripped contrition. Maywish called at odd hours, her voice thin with panic. "Nanny, Ammi says if you help," she began, and I let the phone rest against my ear as if it were a fragile thing that might break. How many times did they pray for Ayaan to rest in peace? I asked her once, listening to the silence between her sobs. How many times did they say it was God's will while they laughed over our poverty? She had no answer. Courtroom days came like thunderstorms. Men and women who had once curtsied before the Raheems now sat as witnesses, their consciences suddenly uncurling under subpoena. Land deals were declared fraudulent. Shell companies were traced like nests of vipers. The media ate it up. The Raheem's name was a brand in tatters. Maywish's world shrank. Invitations stopped. Friends who once smiled at her at charity luncheons crossed streets when they saw her. Her brothers were held for questioning. Rabia's hands were stained with fingerprints that could not be washed away by tears. I watched them on TV. The practiced composure had become brittle, their speeches a string of apologies that no one believed. Arif's justice was surgical, not theatrical. He did not delight in watching them suffer, but he did not hide his satisfaction when the final pieces fell into place. He turned the lake where Ayaan had drowned into something else, not a private memory for a family that had stolen it, but a public refuge. The deed transfer was quiet, and the sign that appeared after the renovations read simply, "Ayaan's Haven for children who need a home." The red toy boat from that day sat in a small glass case near the park bench, a scar turned into an antique. At the sentencing hearing, Maywish stood. Her face was pale and small in the courtroom light. She tried to speak about accidents and misfortune, but the recorded evidence, messages, a hidden camera clip, a testimony from a gardener who had seen them push Ayaan, filled the room with a truth they could not outrun. When the judge pronounced the verdict, I felt no triumphant clap in my chest. The victory was quieter, a cool, absorbing emptiness where the burning grief had lived. Justice had arrived, but it did not call Ayaan back. It only gave the world a little more honesty than it had before. That night, as I walked the path around the newly opened park, children's laughter rose like a new dawn. I sat on the bench and rested my hand on the glass case holding the red boat. Arif sat down beside me without speaking. His presence was enough. "Did we do right?" I whispered. He looked at the children playing under the lampposts and into the lake that no longer held secrets. "You taught me to protect what's ours," he said simply. I only helped finish the lesson. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass and allowed a small, steady peace to settle. The Raheems had fallen, their empire unmasked. But the sweetest change was something no courtroom could order: the park where Ayaan's laughter might return in the mouths of other little ones, clean and bright as sunlight. A year had passed. Silverpine Lake no longer shimmered with sorrow. It glowed with children's laughter. The water was calm, the air carried the scent of flowers, and the sign at the entrance proudly read Ayaan's Haven. Where once tragedy had lived, joy now bloomed. Every Sunday I came early to the park. I brought a basket of toys and small snacks for the children who had no one to bring them. Watching them run and laugh filled the hollow in my chest that once ached with unbearable grief. Arif often joined me, standing silently near the same pier where Ayaan had fallen. The wind tugged at his coat as he said softly, "He'd be 7 now, wouldn't he?" I smiled through tears. Yes, 7. He loved the water, but it betrayed him. Now it protects others. Maybe that's how souls find peace, by turning pain into kindness. Arif nodded, his eyes distant. He had done everything for me quietly, efficiently, without asking for anything in return. But I knew it had cost him too. Justice, even righteous justice, leaves scars of its own. We stood in silence, watching children launch small toy boats across the water. One of them, a little boy with curly hair, waved at me and shouted, "Grandma, mine is winning." I laughed, a sound that felt new, light, and full of life. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, I placed a red toy boat on the water, Ayaan's boat, the same one I had kept all this time. It drifted slowly, gliding toward the golden reflection of the sky. "Rest now, my sweet boy," I whispered. "Your laughter built this place." Arif placed his hand on my shoulder. "You did it, Hina. You didn't just get revenge. You gave him a legacy." I turned to him, tears glistening in the twilight. "No, we did. You were my strength when I had none." He smiled faintly. "You've always had strength. You just forgot it when you lost him. Now, look around, you've turned loss into love." As the evening breeze rippled across the lake, I closed my eyes and felt something shift inside me, forgiveness. Not for them, never for them, but for myself, for surviving, for finding light again. I understood now. Revenge had brought justice, but forgiveness brought freedom. When I left the park that night, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Ayaan's laughter lived there forever, in every splash, every giggle, every innocent heart that found safety by the lake. And as I walked beside Arif, hand in hand, I whispered softly, "They thought they destroyed me, but they only taught me how strong love can be." The wind carried my words over the water, across the ripples of Ayaan's Haven, where the past finally rested and the future began.